Hey everybody. Just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation about the next 2 weeks. So the official ending for the mini session is March 27th, but you have an extra week. You have spring break to complete the rest of your work. But I want to just talk a little bit about what I expect to be passed in. So for one thing, excuse me, get this cord out of the way so I don't knock my computer over. I would do that, as a matter of fact. So I'm looking at Module 7, which is a technology in the teaching demo. And so I've given you some information about some various kinds of technology that you might incorporate into your unit plan. I do expect there to be a technology component. It can be something that I've put up here, or it can be something of your choosing, but there should be some sort of technology involved. It may be you're using a particular platform or website to give quizzes, Kahoot or EduCanon. You may be using a course management platform, whatever. You may be doing a flip lesson, whatever you do, but just needs to be some element of thoughtful integration of technology. I've given you the standards for technology. Technology standards for students and for teachers, those the ISTE standards, and you can go there and look at those. The ISTE, the NET standards for teachers, are part of the main teaching standards. That's not one of the learning outcomes for this course in terms of you having to prove one of those performance indicators, but it should be part of your unit plan nonetheless. I've given you a bunch of websites that you might look at in terms of teaching with and through technology. There's very little reading this week. Most of you have finished your books. I think Science and Social Studies still have a chapter left. Their books were especially long. And then the discussion forum is simply about technology. And then you're finishing up your reading journals during Module 7. I've given you 3 examples of teaching demos, and as I've written to you in emails, these are just examples. I don't expect you to mirror yours for these. Everybody is different, and there's no one correct way to do this. But these are just 3 different ways that students chose to do their teaching demonstrations in last spring's EDU 390. And as I note, those 3 students gave me permission to use their teaching demonstrations. And then, again, I've given you some various platforms you might think of using to do your teaching demonstration, but it's not exhaustive. It's just the ones that I know about. If you have a better one in mind, that's fine. Whatever you use, it needs to be accessible to me and your peers, because you're going to be submitting your demo to your peers in the discussion group for feedback. And there's a feedback protocol there that I want you to look at, so you can provide good feedback, both warm and cool, to your peers. And then it needs to be accessible to me so that I can view it and look at it in conjunction with your unit plan to see how this is working and what part of the unit plan are you demonstrating, and is it staying true to what you're saying in your unit plan. So do take a look at all of those. I know some of you probably already have, but nonetheless, I did want to have some final words before we part company next week in terms of no more classes. I'm sure I will still be in touch because I'll still be reading and scoring your unit plans. And then when I look at Module 8, which is the bonus week for you, I'll get there just a moment. I have both my laptop to record on, and I have my desktop to look at. Module 8 is called Pulling It All Together. And so what I'm asking you to remember to do is make sure you submit your observation narrative. I don't need all of the notes. I only want the narrative. If you observe more than one teacher, then I would like a narrative for each one. If you just did one teacher for 10 hours over a period of days, then one narrative that sort of summarizes that is fine. If you did a reflective analysis, if you're a practicing teacher, that's fine as well. But make sure you've submitted it, okay? And the tabs to submit all your things are in Module 8. So Module 8, you'll find all the submission tabs for everything that's due at the end of this course. Make sure you've submitted a link to your teaching demonstration, and there's a separate place to do that for me and for your peers, so it's going to be twice, okay? Again, make sure it's accessible, make sure you give permission, and so forth and so on. Otherwise, we can't get to it. And make sure you've completed submitted your completed unit of study. One document, please. Do not submit multiple documents. I put it together, synthesize it. If you've got separate documents, put them all on one, please. And a Word document is the best because I can give feedback on the Word document. I can't do that on a PDF. And so I have to write notes somewhere else. and then try to put them in there becomes very time consuming and labor intensive. If you don't have Word, use Open Office. I can annotate an Open Office document. Okay, I can't annotate an RPF document. Not an RPF, rich text, RTF. There, sorry, get the initials correct. If that's all you have, then so be it. But it's just, I prefer a Word document if you can possibly do that. All one, please. Even your rubrics. I want the UBC. And let me go over what I want to see. Okay, I want to see the UBC template with stage 1 and 2. I don't need to see the stage 3. I don't need to see the where to. The where to is really your sort of preliminary thinking about using these considerations. Okay, if you want to include it, it's fine, but it won't be considered as part of the scoring. Okay, it's really a practice to sort of think about, how am I going to engage students? How am I going to keep them hooked? How am I going to equip them? How am I going to be organized? How am I going to, and so forth. We know all the considerations. But I will be looking for those throughout your unit plan in terms of, have you addressed these considerations, all right? But I don't need to see that outline that you did, preliminary one. If I need to refer to that, I can go back and look at what you've already submitted, but I don't need to see it now. So stage 1 and 2 on that template, please, okay? Please use the template. And then I would want to see detailed lesson plans using the lesson plan template I gave you. And I know there are many different ways to construct lessons. I don't argue that. But for consistency and for being a little bit expedient and trying to get your unit plans read and graded, use that particular lesson plan. And erase all the questions. Don't leave those in there. That's very confusing. Okay? The questions are just guides to help you know what goes in each piece. Take those out at the end. Don't leave those in there. I know what the questions are. I only want to see what you're planning on doing. Detailed, please, especially in the instructional plan. I want to see what you're doing and what the student's doing. I don't want you just to say, two things. I want details about, where our students are going to work in groups. Are they going to work individually? Are you giving them handouts? Are you giving guided questions? And if you are, I want to see those handouts and the guided questions. I want this to be a complete unit plan. I want it to be that if you fell off the face of the earth tomorrow and a substitute teacher had to come in, he or she could pick up this unit plan and go with it with no questions whatsoever. So I really want to see detail. So a lesson plan for each day, each lesson that you have, okay? Some lesson plans may slide over to another day, and that's perfectly okay. You can say for days 3 and 4, this is what's happening. It may take more than one single period. You may be looking at some videos, or you may be whatever that takes more time. That's fine. You can say that. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be everything. Has to be everything on one day. So it could be one lesson plan is going to take 2 days, and that's fine. But just note that this will take 2 days. Okay. And this is the reason I asked you to think about keeping your unit plans manageable. If you've got a lesson plan that encompasses 5 days, you've got 5 lesson plans. If you've got one that encompasses 20, you've got 20 lesson plans. So be thoughtful about how long this unit is going to go in terms of what you want to submit. It should be complete. It shouldn't just drop off, but it could be that the unit comes to an end and you can note this transitions into X. Okay, that's perfectly okay. I have not looked at your rubrics yet for your summative assessment. It's Friday. I will look at them. I have a very busy schedule this weekend. I'm going to do my best to get to them Sunday. I'm going to be in Orono all day Saturday for a meeting, and as soon as I finish this video, I'm going to a Senate meeting. I'll be in there till most of the afternoon. So I will get to them. I want to give you feedback before you complete your unit plans. But I can say this, and this has happened in the past, but I hope it doesn't happen this time. I hope I've been clear about what these rubrics look like. The rubrics need to be standards-based, and they need to use the language of the standards. Those standards are your learning goals from your UBC plan. Whatever goals you listed in that block where it said outcomes, goals, not outcomes, goals, sorry. Those are the standards, whether they're Common Core for math or English or literacy, or they're social studies, science standards, art standards, whatever you're using. Those are the things you have to assess in your summative assessments. It could be one summative assessment that assesses all of them, which is fine if you only have 2 or 3, or it could be a couple of assessments that assess them. If you look back to my model, there were 2 summative assessments. There was one for sort of the reading standards and one for the writing standards. I think some might have crossed over. But every standard that I've listed in my goals is assessed on the summative assessment. That's what proficiency-based teaching and learning is about. That we set standards, we set the goals for our students, and then we assess them, either partway through the unit or the end of the unit or both. It doesn't have to always be at the end. Sometimes, you assess standards as you go along, but those are summative assessments, okay? I will look very carefully to see that your learning goals are all being assessed on your summative assessments. Not so much just addressed in your lesson plans, that's important, but that's important for you as a teacher to be understanding where you're going, okay? But you can't go to have 14 standards and then only assess 6 of them, okay? That can't happen. All right, so I'm going to repeat this. Very, very important. All the goals you've set, the standards, must be assessed in your summative assessments, okay? You must, in your rubrics, use the language of the standards. Some students have in the past have gone to the internet and looked for rubric builders, which are fine to use. They're formatted, they're great, but you can't use the generic language, of student has a complete paragraph, or student understands multiplication. That's not a standard, okay? That could be a checklist, but it's not a rubric, okay? An assessment rubric. It's very important that you, if you don't remember this, to go back and look at my video on assessment and look at the language that we used. I gave you a generic language that you could pull out, and you could think about using that, in your rubrics. All right. Again, this is something I will score you on, that your assessments are proficiency-based and aligned with standards. Okay, I think I've talked that one enough. Okay, if you have questions, let me know, all right? And when I read the rubrics this weekend, I will provide you feedback, and again, if you can't add a standard to or add something to this that you haven't put in your goals, all right? So you can't surprise kids at the end. They have to know what they're being assessed on. Let's see, what else? Okay. All right. So let me go over Module 8, which is pulling it all together. All right, so I've talked about the unit of study. Now, the final thing you're going to do for this class is your self-assessment. This is the metacognitive piece here. I mean, we're working like crazy in these 7 weeks, and then now going to the 8th week with this bonus week. It's done a tremendous amount of work. And sometimes we don't slow down enough to think about what have we learned from our experience. And I know a lot of you have brought a lot of experience to this class, and I sincerely appreciate that. I appreciate the expertise across the student body in this course. I appreciate that you're sharing that expertise with others. And now it's time for us to think about what is it we've learned. So like you are holding your students or potential students to standards, I hold you to standards as well. And if you remember from our syllabus, there are learning outcomes for this class. And they are the main teaching standards, okay? You have to now, at the end of this course, self-assess. How did I, and how well did I, come to meet these standards in the work and conversations that happened in this class? That is a document. It looks like this, says Final Exam, and it's located in Module 8, and it is asking you to write a narrative in which you assess your growth towards an understanding of the main teaching certification standards for this course. I'm asking you to name an artifact, something you did, okay, that's an artifact, and write a reflection that shows why you believe this artifact assists you in meeting the standards. The artifact could be part of your lesson plans, your unit plans, it could be the UCB template, it could be a discussion forum, it could be many things. And I've given on this document some possibilities for how you might demonstrate your understanding of each standard. But I'm just suggesting, you're the person that has to do the metacognitive self-evaluation, all right? So for instance, I've listed the first 3, which are the standards 1, learner development, and there's only one performance indicator. I'm not holding you to every single thing in that particular standard. There's a lot. The one that I'm holding you responsible for standard 1 is the teacher creates developmentally appropriate instruction that takes into account individual learners' strengths, interests, and needs, and then enables each learner to advance and accelerate his or her learning. You work through that beautifully, in your unit plans. I saw some beautifully differentiated lessons and tiered assignments. So, a possibility then could be your unit or lesson plans. And you might explain how you use multiple ways to learn and how They facilitate accessibility and meaning for learners, okay? So something you did, something that's part of your lesson plan, and then reflection. And then there's under the, there's standard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so there are 8 standards that you have to write a self-evaluation for. Okay, and for each of the groups, remember I grouped them into learner and the learning differences, content, instructional practices, and professional development. Okay, we didn't go into professional development in this course, so it's the first 3 major groups, and that encompasses 8 standards. If you don't remember the INTAS standards, you can go back to the syllabus, and they are linked there, I believe. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm pretty sure they are. I give them to every class. Okay, so that's the final thing you have to do for this course. That's on Module 8. There are tabs to submit your field observation, your teaching demonstration, your completed unit of study, and your final self-assessment, and a link to the discussion forum to share your work. All right. And there's also a feedback protocol there for you to look at, all right? So you can open the PDF file, just open it up and take a look at it. And what it does is it tells you what's the difference between warm and cool, and how there are examples there. So a cool comment might be, I wonder if this fits that, okay? All right, so you may have a question about how something fits in. It might be, I can't tell if the student is to do this or that. Right? It is hard to tell what the goal was and what the thinking skills were. So those might be cool feedback. Warm feedback might be attention to detail is evident in the following areas, XYZ, or I like the way you XYZ, so forth and so on. So use that chart to help you provide feedback to your peers. This is very important, people. It really is. It's one of the most important parts of this class. You've shared throughout these 7 weeks, and this will be your final place to share your interest in teaching. It's to provide feedback for your peers. Critical feedback is essential for growing as a teacher, and oftentimes when we get in the classroom, we don't get that. We get in these little silos. This is your chance to really work with your peers and to get some of that feedback and to provide feedback as well. We all come from different places and different areas of expertise, and I think that shared expertise will be extremely important in the feedback. Okay, so I close that out. Just see. And the last thing on Module 8 is a section for preparing for student teaching in the PLT. I know I have applications from some of you for student teaching, and I'm working on those placements. It takes a long time to do that, especially this time of year when it's very, very busy in the schools and here. But there's also information about the Principles of Learning and Teaching exam. If you are, going into the classroom, for certification, you will need to take the Principles of Learning and Teaching exam for your content area, for your grade level area. And there is information there in terms of that. And there's also test codes and cut scores. And you can find all this information on our teacher preparation page, and you can register for the test on the ETS website. There may be some of you who are exempt from this test because you have prior certification in other areas, but generally speaking, most people following this pathway at UMA have to take the PLT exam. So I think that's it, folks. If you have, one more thing. And in terms of how your unit plan will be graded, there's a rubric. It's attached to your syllabus, and it is based on these standards that you are going to be doing your self-reflection on. And it looks like this. It has some blue on it, and it is written in the language of the standards. So you might look at that for help in understanding how do I take the actual standard and then create the performance indicators. And for your rubric, there are only three: proficient, nearing proficiency, and needs work. Those are the only 3 that I'm giving you. All right, I'm not doing partially. I'm not doing exemplary. I think all proficient work is exemplary. So I'm not distinguishing between exemplary and proficient. All right. So for example, the very first one that I read you earlier, 1B, the teacher creates developmentally appropriate instruction, etc. For proficient, the language says, the teacher's unit of study takes into consideration the grade level as well as the variances among students who may need advanced work, differentiated instruction, and/or alternate assessment. Right? That's the language. Nearing proficient says the teacher's unit of study may take into consideration the grade level or the variance among students, but not both. Okay, so both things have not been taken into consideration. Needs work. The teacher's unit of study is not appropriate for the grade level and does not provide for different learning levels. Okay, so, and do take some time to read this so you'll understand how the grading takes place. What you can expect from me when I finish reading your unit of study, watching your teaching demonstration, is a rubric that is highlighted. I will attach it in your grade center, and you will expect a narrative from me. I write narrative letters at the end of this course. I think it's extremely important in this course particularly because this is generally the capstone course for students going into student teaching or into the classroom, and I want to provide as much feedback as possible. And it gets to be very hectic during the time of the class to give you the more narrative feedback that I like to give. And so, and when I score these, I provide you with that narrative in terms of both warm and cool feedback. When you submit your teaching your field observation for me, you will also get a grade, and you will get a narrative feedback from me as well. I don't have a rubric for that. I probably should, but I've just never constructed one. I sort of go with my gut. If you've done a field observation and you've critically evaluated the teacher that you've been observing, it's a pass for me. And because the course doesn't allow for pass or fail, it's either an A or I ask you to do some more work. There's really no gradation of how well you did with that. It's just that you did it thoughtfully and you included all the criteria, or you didn't. Okay, so I've never had to send it back to anybody. So I think it will all be good. But the reason I ask you to do the field observation is so that you can get a new set of eyes on something. Sometimes we focus exclusively on what we see. Getting out and seeing somebody else doing this work, it gives another perspective. Very important in being a teacher and staying a teacher. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it for me. And so, again, I sincerely appreciate your work in this class. And as I noted, I only generally offer this course in the spring, but I've had several inquiries, so I am offering it again in the fall. I'm going to offer it in the 15-week section, but with 7 modules, or the 8 modules, so that students will have 2 weeks to complete each module rather than the 1 week that you've been doing in this more truncated version. And that's in response to a lot of student feedback about it's a lot of work in a short amount of time. We like getting it done early, we like the intensity, but maybe a little more time to be a little more thoughtful. I absolutely agree. And so I'm continually reshaping my courses based on student feedback. So I'm going to work the fall course that way. I think that will is a good compromise of being expedient, but allowing enough time to get the work done. If you know of people who need a methods course in these content areas, please let them know that the course is available for the fall. I'm more than happy to accept non-degree students as we have this semester. And I know a lot of you wrote to me early on, can I get into your class? And I gave permission to everyone who emailed me. So do pass it on to your colleagues and friends who might need the course. With that, I want to let you know that I will be away during spring break, but I will have my email with me, and I will certainly respond to email. I may not be as quick as I am during the regular semester time, but I will get back to you. I check my email often, and I don't hesitate to ask. Okay. Again, I thank you for your good work this semester, and thank you for being part of this course. Thank you for supporting UMA. UMA is so happy to support all of you, and I wish you all the best. Will be, conversing with each of you individually, either through email or Skype or phone calls, as we finish up the semester. But collectively, I just want to thank you for your great work, and have a great day.